That is a culture we're dealing with. Because I don't like the words you said, I can collectively gather all of my homies who are equally as fragile and then launch a cancellation campaign against you. How are we going to have dialogue? How are we going to have compromise between the left and the right and anyone in the center if we can't hear both sides, no matter how crazy? I want to ask them questions without feeling like I'm going to get canceled or I'm going to offend you. Like, what does it matter with you people? That we should have never gotten here. And the fact that that has become a topic of conversation on social media, that really saddens me.
Remember, adversity is your advantage.
Hey, welcome back, my friends. Another episode of the CEO Show with Bryce Henson, where we teach leadership, promote capitalism, and defend free speech. Another month, I got my man B back in the studio.
Good to be back, Bryce.
Welcome, B. So today's topic of conversation, man, wild that we're even talking about this right now, but is cancel culture. So, B, you got another decade of experience on business and entrepreneurship. So I really want to look deep into your soul here, because in my business experience, it hasn't been until like recent handful of years where we've really seen this front and center. COVID kicked it off. But I'm curious from your lens, what's the current state of cancel culture in our society, and what's really happened over the last handful of years?
I think the current state is a culmination of us raising kids who were so weak, so fragile, so emotionally unstable, bubble wrapped metaphorically throughout their life, to where the first time they got offended as adults, they decided that they're going to pout and use social media to collectively recruit other emotionally crippled adults who were once emotionally weak kids and rally a cancellation of name the celebrity, thought leader, influencer, or whatever. And that's because parents raised kids that were not resilient, that did not have a backbone, that understood that there's winners and losers in life. And just because they want to be a winner does not guarantee them winning in life. But when parents constantly promote participation trophies, and when parents put their kids in a position that they rescue them over and over again, as soon as those kids deal with a little adversity in life, could be elementary school, junior high, high school, wherever, soon those kids developed this entitlement of, when I pout, someone needs to come and save me. And when I have a temper tantrum, they figured out that they can recruit their social media followers who are equally as weak and broken like them. And I'm not shitting on them by saying this. I'm simply shining a light on the obvious. Like, it's a country of free speech. And just because I saw a YouTube short the other day, and the guy is talking to a group of women from OnlyFans. They're OnlyFans models. Yeah. For some reason, when you have an OnlyFans, you're an OnlyFans model. Ooh. But if you're on Pornhub, you're a porn star. Yeah. Trust me. If you're on OnlyFans and you're a model, you're probably showing a lot of skin and the vagina. But what do I know? But anyway, so this gentleman is talking to these ladies who are OnlyFans models. And by the way, I don't pass any judgment there. Let's just not call it models, right?
Yeah. Call a spade a spade.
Yeah. And he's like, listen, if I go on my microphone here on my show and say, I hate fat women, he goes, I will be canceled immediately. He goes, but you guys can go on your platforms and say, I hate short men. He goes, interestingly enough, you guys don't get canceled, and I, for hating fat women, would get canceled. Yet a short man can do nothing to get taller, yet a fat woman can do everything to lose weight and be fit.
Sure.
That is a culture we're dealing with. Because I don't like the words you said, I can collectively gather all of my homies who are equally as fragile and then launch a cancellation campaign against you. And that is not how the world works. And I think people are figuring that out. So, you try and cancel someone and it backfires now more than ever.
It can, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting for me, you first put this saying on the map a few years ago with COVID. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. And I think we've been in a time of massive prosperity, even though maybe it doesn't feel like it. If you just take a step back and look at human civilization and culture, the last 200 years, there's been hundreds of millions, billions of people lifted out of poverty. You take a time portal back 200 years ago, you wouldn't want to be a human on this planet.
Right.
And I think the times that we're in are very prosperous at this. We're in good times, and it's actually being, to your point, creating weak men.
Yeah.
And that's the foundation of this. And I think it's good intention, right? The helicopter parents, if you will, are helicoptering over their kids, laboring with their teachers when they don't get, good grades. In fact, it's crazy. My sister-in-law, Barrett, who's my executive director of coaching and profitability, his wife is a university professor. And she's like, today I will get notes from the parents of college kids, 18, 19, 22-year-old college kids. Their parents are laboring for higher grades and higher marks, questioning my sister-in-law's grade, which is wild to me, freaking bonkers. So that's an extreme of this, but it comes with good intention. Yeah, everyone wants their kids to do well. Everyone wants their kids to be successful. But if you bubble wrap your child, if you literally become a helicopter parent, if you are laboring with their college professor when they're 22 years old to get a better grade, this is where this basically the foundation, the situation has stemmed from my perspective.
Yeah, and the roots ran deep and long because parents did that. I mean, just go back 70 years, 75, 80 years. Like, kids that age, I don't want to call them kids, adults that age, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, were in the trenches of World War II.
Dude, D-Day just happened, right? The 80th anniversary. Freaking 21-year-olds are freaking dying on the beaches protecting our freedoms.
Yeah. Their parents were not writing notes to teachers and to congressmen saying, please don't take my child. They were saying, let's go beat the Germans. Let's go beat Hitler. And it is a mindset that starts with the parents that pours into those children, and those children grow up and they have a device in their hand that gives them access to the world, and they feel entitled to a voice. Not everyone should have a voice, and these little bitch-ass children should not.
Yeah, amen to that. Next up, I'm curious on your thoughts on if and how social media is being used as a tool, and specifically to instill fear, if you will, around this cancel culture and all that. And it's interesting, social media in so many ways is a godsend, right? It's literally leveled the playing field. It's provided so much opportunity. On the back end, it seems to be there's some forces at play that have actually used that tool to create propaganda, distort reality, and again, bring back the cancel culture we're talking about right now.
And I always come back to this. The other day, Andrew and I were driving through Carbon Canyon. It was late at night, like after 10 p.m.
And who's Andrew in the case? The small chance someone doesn't know who Andrew is.
Andrew, my son. Sitting here, I'm talking to Bryce, my homie, who I've known forever. But to the world, Andrew is my son, 18-year-old son. And we're driving back from Brea to Chino Hills, going through Carbon Canyon. For those who don't know what Carbon Canyon is, Google it, but it's 13 miles of historical windy road that connects Brea, the city of Brea, California, to the city of Chino Hills, California. And you're going through this beautiful scenic canyon, uphill, downhill, hairpin turns, extraordinary drive. 10 o'clock at night, we're coming back from an event, he and I. And we see all of a sudden, as we're driving up, we see two cars have crashed. A Tesla, airbags blown out, ladies kind of bleeding down the face. I pull over. There's already someone who's pulled over, and they're calling 911. I said, Andrew, run out there and see if they're both okay. I put the car in park. I went running as well. This other Asian dude, his car's like, you can tell it's just been completely demolished. He's got a gash on the side of his head. There's a taller white woman and a Hispanic shorter man. Every one of us are trying to tend to these people. So you got almost every culture there. And we're all being very effective at comforting the injured, at making sure there's no spark or gas that's, flammable, making sure there's, I don't know if you've ever seen airbags deploy, but you can't see who's inside the car. No. So you got to lift up those airbag curtains to see, is there anyone else with these people?
Yep.
And as Andrew, and once the cops came and the fire department came and started tending to the scene, Andrew and I drove off and went home. And I said, buddy, isn't it interesting? Like, any one of these people may have said that I'm an asshole on social media because of the project or the Squire program. Those are my two very polarizing events that I have. I don't know, but any one of them could have, because some of them seem very different culturally than I am. But there on Carbon Canyon, we're all human, and we're dealing with a disaster. And I believe humans are inherently good.
Yes.
I think if you meet up with humans who you have an opposing viewpoint with, no matter how conservative you are or how liberal they are, you will find common ground and compromise.
Amen.
If you meet up with them in person. What social media has done, and I don't know if part of it is the algorithm, because it creates an echo chamber, right? As soon as you start liking people that share your value system and share your model of humanity, you start getting more content like that. So you're like, yeah, see, we are right. And then every now and again, when you see someone who doesn't share what you like, doesn't jive with what you like, you're like, see, and you're wrong, right? I've learned long ago that life is not so black and white. There's actually many shades of gray in between. And if we come together, we can find compromise. And in that moment, I realized no one asked me if I'm liberal or conservative. No one asked me if I'm rich or poor. No one asked me other than they said, thank you for helping. Do you know CPR? Yes, I do. Do you have, yes, I've got bandages and first aid kit in the truck. Let me go get it. Did everything we can to render first aid, all of us together. Lady had a water bottle in her car that she gave the dude who's had a gash on the side of his face. We served humanity together. But social media will create this echo chamber of hate. So then that's amplified and used by, I believe, evil politicians. They are not our leaders. Let's not call them leaders. They are public servants.
Amen.
We put them into office to say that here's X amount of money we're going to give you to manage this city, state, country, according to our will. The majority who put you into office. Who fucking said you're going to send $50 billion at a time to Ukraine? Where exactly did I say that? Where exactly did the majority say that? Because we didn't, because you see people literally trying to survive with the level of inflation that we're dealing with. But I share this with you because I think social media creates an echo chamber because of the algorithm and the stuff that we like, and we see more of the people that we jive with. And of course, politicians use that, and they use the extreme cases, the fringe liberals and the fringe conservative. See, they hate all Christians. Okay. See, they hate all gays. Somewhere there's like, listen, I don't hate all gays, and I'm not sure if I like all Christians, to be honest with you. Some of them are assholes, and I know plenty of gay people who are fucking idiots.
Well, and both, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, let me judge who I'm going to hang out with, and you guys just manage our country. So politicians have taken advantage of the fringes that you'll find in social media, and then they stir the pot. But in reality, man, you get together with humans anywhere, like in a car accident, no one's like, hey, listen, do we share core value? Do you believe in transgender? Because I'm transgender. Before you close this gash up in my face, if you don't believe in my flag, do not stop me from bleeding. Motherfucker, if you're like, listen, I don't think transgender exists, but I can still help you with that gash, they were like, fair enough.
Please help.
Please help. Stitch me up, sir.
Yep.
Right? That's how reality is. But again, social media has created echo chambers, and then these weak people who have been bubble wrapped and emotionally crippled for life have found a way to get attention through their outbursts, because it is entertaining to the rest of us. Like, oh, look, the dude's wearing lipstick and eyeshadow, and he says that he's a teenage girl, yet he's promoting Bud Light. Dylan Mulvaney, where the fuck his name is, right? Like, first of all, that's like perverted on so many levels. And secondly, I don't give a shit, because I've raised two kids who know the difference between like propaganda and bullshit and all this stuff. But I share that with you because people will be like, well, see, if he identifies, well, listen, if he identifies as a 14-year-old girl, would you let him go into the girls' locker room at your kid's high school?
Hell no.
Probably not.
Yeah, hell no.
And I like how the government goes, well, if he identifies as a 14-year-old girl, he should be able to identify as a 14-year-old girl. Who are we to say what gender is? But then just recently, when Congress passed the draft, right, they were like, men between ages 18 and 24 are automatically enrolled into the draft. How did you all of a sudden figure out gender? when it was convenient to you, right? But you can yet discount gender when it's not. And so again, politicians use social media and aggravate the emotionally crippled to create a frenzy to start canceling people who are speaking against their political actions. That's just how it works.
Yeah, and I want to dive into that. Speaking of cancel culture, like how is that affecting specifically the element of free speech, which, us being entrepreneurs, and I look at things from a leadership framework, man, this is why freedom of speech is so important. And I'm going to share a couple examples that I've seen, and I would love your feedback as well, B. But when you have an environment where good ideas and bad ideas can be challenged, there's a healthy debate, right?
Yeah.
I believe in human nature. Human nature is good. We spout out good ideas will rise to the surface, and then bad ideas will die, okay? The opposite is also true. If you walk into an environment where free speech is prohibited, whether it be a tyrannical government or even a tyrannical leader, okay, where you have to walk on eggshells, you can't really speak your mind, eventually what happens, that fear, that censorship, bad ideas rise to the surface, and then good ideas die. And my career before working with you and meeting you, B, back in 2012, I used to work in sales in leadership space for a career development program. And my first original mentor, his name was Eric. He ended up selling the company to another leader. And Eric was a hard-charging entrepreneur, really strong visionary, really strong leader, celebrated free speech, celebrated a feedback culture where we could debate ideas and the best idea would win, right?
Yep.
But then when he sold the company, really what it came down to, I think he was a good person, just insecure, very weak leader, okay? Had this fear about him where he couldn't, he did not propagate an environment where good ideas and bad ideas could be challenged. And eventually people were walking on eggshells. Well, sadly, through many courses of iterations, the company went bankrupt and failed. And that for me, I took a step back and I realized, like, man, that is such a powerful, lesson on leadership, on vision, on freedom of speech that's mission critical to business, it's mission critical to life and success. So that's one example that I've seen that's really, really concerning. And that just shows the value of having a strong feedback culture, which to me is free speech. So from your perspective, what have you seen and how has that impacted you?
Let's not forget that free speech is literally the freedom of speech is our very first constitutional right.
Amendment number 1.
Only protected by our second constitutional right, the Second Amendment, which is freedom to bear arms, right? And the only reason we can have free speech is because of that Second Amendment. But again, when people get so butthurt because someone is speaking so openly and honestly, whether, by the way, it's their truth. When Trump was on Twitter, when Twitter was still Twitter and Elon didn't own Twitter, they banned Trump from Twitter because he was hurting feelings. They were saying he was sharing misinformation. Are we so weak as a nation, as a culture, that we can't sift through good and bad information and decide who is crazy and who is not, and whether we're going to follow Trump or not?
That shows to me a lack of belief in human nature, where literally you can't put ideas in human nature, can't decide. What that shows me is the powers that be don't actually believe that humans can make decisions for themselves. That's how I see it.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And going back to the cancel culture deal, they canceled him from Twitter. Elon took over Twitter, saw that the FBI, there was actual emails from the FBI, who was under the current administration, being telling Twitter that, hey, these are the people whose comments and content we suppressed or completely stopped. And Twitter was America's kind of soapbox.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Town hall, yeah.
Yeah, now X, but it is America's town hall or soapbox. And how are we going to have dialogue? How are we going to have compromise between the left and the right and anyone in the center if we can't hear both sides, no matter how crazy? I want to hear the person who says, look, I'm a transgender unicorn. I go, I want to ask them questions without feeling like I'm going to get canceled or I'm going to offend you. The other day I was at a restaurant and I asked the person I was with, I was like, hey, just out of curiosity, do you think the person behind the counter is male or female? And he goes, dude, I can't tell. I go, well, the name says male, but the facial features say female, huh? I go, wouldn't it be great if you could ask, say, hey, look, I don't want to offend you. I'm a human. I'm curious. Just want to know, right? It's like, oh, dude, we can't. They might recognize who you are, and then now you're going to be canceled. How unfortunate that I just want to have. Let's not forget, I worked at Disneyland, which has the highest population of gay employees on the planet. I work with so many amazing gay people. lesbian people, you name it. Probably transgender, and maybe the term just didn't exist. I worked at Oz, the gay club in Boynton Park, California. Yet I didn't feel comfortable enough to ask a simple question in a very fair way that wouldn't be offending, but it's easy to take an offense because you can just bust out your iPhone and be like, "Are you attacking me, sir? Are you attacking me?" And all of a sudden I'm canceled. So anyway, all that to say that it's a very unfortunate thing. And when free speech is suppressed, then the opposition, big government, who is definitely driven by agenda, begins to reach deeper into the control and compliance of humanity. We need free speech.
Oh, yeah.
We need the ability to share thoughts. We need to have a little bit of combative words. Doesn't mean we need to create civil war, but let's have a little. It's okay to upset you.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be upset without feeling like I need a safe space. You know, the other day I saw a post on Threads, and it was this woman, and she said, if I walk into a business and on the television, if I walk into a restaurant and on the TVs they're playing Fox News, I walk right back out. And I read most of the comments. Thankfully, most of the comments under there was, how emotionally fragile are you that that's going to infuriate you so much that a restaurant that you're going to go to, now you won't go to, and your night is ruined.
That's crazy
right?
to me.
Yeah.
Lack of emotional intelligence, lack of self-leadership. How can you lead a family, organization, an empire if you can't even lead yourself through strong emotional intelligence? Holy shit.
A grown-ass woman, and it's unfortunate. And then there was people in the comments who were like, yeah, well, when I walk into a restaurant or a bar and I see CNN, it's like, oh my God.
Same thing.
Like, what is the matter with you people?
Yeah.
That we should have never gotten here. And the fact that that has become a topic of conversation on social media, on Threads, right? That really saddens me because we have so many more important things to talk about. Like, who exactly are we going to put into office come November who is not going to run this amazing country of ours into the ground, right? Like, I think that's a much more appropriate topic to bring up on Threads and have a civil conversation. But again, immediately, because it's social media and because you're never going to see the person in like face to face, people go to attacking each other.
Keyboard warriors, baby.
Yeah, keyboard warriors.
And then to your point about the story, in Carbon Canyon, you meet them in person. It's like, human nature is good, man. We generally want what's best. And it's interesting. The dark side of social media and the polarization is, you said it in a different way, but I would say vast majority of people are kind of like in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the extremes, and then the strategy, the extreme just point at the other extreme, where then you feel like everyone's on the extreme. And the reality, the situation of 80% of people
you nailed it.
Are in the middle of the situation.
I was going to say about 80% of us so from every side, 80% of us are in the middle watching the 20%, right? The 10% on that side, 10% on that side, the two fringe launching cannonballs. I just figure like millions of people in the middle just doing this with their head.
Just
right?
watching the freak shows on each side.
Yeah, and going like, oh my God, somehow they are the squeaky wheels, and they're the ones that get the attention. They get the oil, right?
Yeah.
Yet the 80% of us in the middle are like, look, I just want to be left alone. I want to make money. I want to feel safe. I want access to my freedoms. I want to be able to make my money and to be able to have a home and a car or two and to take my family on vacation. Like, people don't, like, do I really care what you put in your butt? I really don't. I really don't. I really don't. Just
as long as you don't put it in mine,
Right. Exactly. But they make it seem like somehow if you're not okay with it and you don't acknowledge it and you don't tell your kids about it, like, I don't think there's that many. I know plenty of gay people. I've got coaching clients who are gay. They're like, what's happening in the world right now is stupid. Like, I wouldn't trust a man who says he's a woman to go into a woman's restroom.
No.
And this is like a woman who's gay telling me this.
Yeah.
Like, common sense is something that we've lost. It's no longer so common, right?
Not so common. Took the words literally out of your mouth, B.
Yeah.
So what do you think then, looking in the future? And I'm so grateful, which is crazy. I mean, I can understand why Elon Musk recently has been a little bit more controversial. He's a troll. He likes to, poke fun. But at the end of the day, when I take a step back from a visionary, from an entrepreneur perspective, how much value has this guy added? I was scared for a while and still am. That's the reason. This is my revolt revolt. This is my protest to make sure that we can spread good ideas and have this strong platform. But when seeing the cancel culture and the social media platforms at all, when Elon Musk decided to purchase now Twitter X, I mean, that was a shot of like a reassurance to humanity to that open forum. So that's been a guiding light for me. I'm curious in your perspective, B, where do you see this goes, fast forward 5-10 years?
Well, I think what we're seeing now, remember, the pandemic really stirred the pot and turned people against each other, right? Everything from George Floyd to people who believed in the vaccine and those who didn't, and people who believed that we should have figured out where the virus came from versus those who were like, it doesn't matter where the virus came from, we just have to deal with it. People who believe businesses shut down versus those who believe that businesses should not shut down. People who believe that the cops are good and people who believe the cops are... There was so much dissension amongst humanity. Where I think it's going now. And all while that was happening, they were printing money. They were printing money. They were printing money. And I'm so glad. I don't know if you know this. I'm sure you do. 81% of the money in circulation in the United States right now was printed in the last 4 years.
Crazy.
That is the reason. So while we were fighting against the vaccine and the virus and the gays and the straights and the cops and the not cops and all this stupid shit, they were constantly printing more money, driving inflation up. So everything got more expensive for you, yet your salary did not increase. And I'm happy that happened. Here's why. Finally, it's hitting everybody's pocketbook.
It is.
And now that it's hitting everybody's pocketbook, they're like, you know what? I don't care if I voted for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, because now their policies have led me to running out of money before I run out of month.
Yes, sir.
And therefore, I'm looking for an alternative. And that's what we needed. We needed the economy to really crash for people's finances, everyday people's finances. They needed to feel the pain in their bank account and their pocketbook so that we can have a little bit more dialogue and compromise. And they're like, you know what? Maybe Trump's not so bad. And I'm not sitting here, hitting the drum for Trump. I'm just saying if we have only two options, Biden and Trump, I'm going to go with the person who is going to lead this country well. I'm not going to ask Trump to come and lead my kids. I don't believe in his core values and his moral character. But if those are the only two options that I have, Biden and Kamala Harris have proven that they took a nice, healthy shit on our country, on our freedoms, on our economy, and our position as a superpower. And if my only other option is Trump, I will take him because I do believe he will win respect of enemy countries, and to have those enemy countries respect us and fear us is one of the greatest ways to keep them from opposing us, and that he is a businessman ultimately, and he can run this country, which at the end of the day, when you're the president, you're the CEO of the country, and you got to...
mega business, man.
That's all it is.
Mega business.
That's it. We are the customers that put money into the country, into the business, and then the president, the CEO, needs to decide how that money is used. And the current administration has shown that they are very poor in their judgment in terms of using our money. So I share that with you because where's cancel culture going? I have a feeling the same culture, the same group of people that were so excited and would cancel people if you were talking about Trump and you were talking against Kamala Harris. Like, I don't know if you remember the post I did on social media about a year and a half ago. I said Kamala Harris was our first DEI hire, right? Diversity, inclusion, and equity hire. And we've all seen what she's done to the country in terms of her role as vice president. And I had like 5,000 people literally unfollow me on social media, because you can check your stats, which in 3 days, 5,000 people. I got death threats. And I also had thousands of people start following me because of it. And we're like, you know what? Thanks for saying what we were all thinking. But now the same people who were like unfollowing me and they were like, how dare you say this about Kamala? Now they're getting up in arms against Kamala Harris. They're getting up in arms against the senile Joe Biden. And they're like, what have you done to my bank account? It had to hit people's finances so that they could see that the people that were like, hey, it's okay, go cancel this person, go emotionally react, go and it's okay to be bubble wrapped, and it's okay to, just break off the hinges. Well, the same administration that said all that now has caused them such financial hardship that they're like, you know what? I think maybe there's a better way. There's a better alternative. And maybe all this emotional freaking out is not a good way for me to share my thoughts and feelings. And so I do believe this cancel culture is going to go away. I do believe that the pendulum had to swing way far to the end.
Oh, yeah.
Things are still going to get worse, by the way. I also feel the economy is going to continue to crumble. There will be a financial correction in the stock market, in the housing market, in the job market. Unemployment will go up because the economy will come to a near screeching halt. But we need that because, going back to what you said earlier, we're at that point where weak people have created hard times. And the hard times that we're experiencing now and the harder times that are about to come are going to create stronger men and women.
Amen to that. And how I'd finish off this podcast, it's cyclical. That's what I see. And I think it's just, if you take a step back and look at human history, you'll actually see what's going to happen. And it's just a cycle. And the cycle will always continue to go up and down. Yeah. And us freedom fighters, entrepreneurs in the trenches, fighting for the American dream. We need to fight for free speech. We need to fight for sovereignty. We need to fight for the ability of the government to get out of our business so we can add value to humanity, solve problems for profit. And this, my friends, is what this game of free market capitalism of the American dream is all about. Mm-hmm. So that's how I want to close it. B, any last thoughts on your end, buddy?
No, I think the greatest thing we all need to remember is, like you said, this is cyclical. It's been happening since the dawn of time, since the Roman era, right? Since the Roman era. The difference is social media amplifies everything and puts it right in your face because that little device in your pocket is on 24/7 and your screen's sucking more than you should be.
Amen. B, appreciate you, my dude.
Thank you.
Friends, I know you got a ton of value. And listen to this. We were just checking our stats. About 98% of the viewers that watch this content are not subscribed. So if you want to stay up to date with the recent content with B and I going live on a weekly basis, go ahead and click the subscribe button. Like this, share this with a friend. And that's all I got for you today. So remember, my friend, adversity is your advantage. And we'll see you in the next episode.